Hey guys, so I want to do a video, and I basically want to continue my last video, last video on ISFJs, ENTPs, ESFJs, and not last but not least, INTPs. So I noticed when I was looking at my last video that I was kind of uncomfortably close with the camera, so I want to get a bit closer with you and get kind of nice and cuddly with you right now. So, anyway, I want to begin my video where I left off. So I think there's like anyway, I think there was, I left off with talking about ESFJs kind of mid-sentence and it got cut off. So I want to be able to continue my thought. But first I will get to that, but I will rehash my thoughts with the ISFJ. So I'm going to get back to normal distance. I know Americans like to have some a nice bubble around them when they're communicating with somebody. So I'm sorry if I made anybody feel uncomfortable. First I want to start with ISFJ. So ISFJ on the surface only. You see this jolly character, smiling, but kind of unsure of themselves. They're kind of submissive. They're kind of mundane. They must like occupy some lower level positions at work. They do a lot of grunt work. They treat their passions like hobbies. You know, people you can't really take seriously, so it seems. These people are actually one of the sharpest thinkers out there, most intricate in their thinking, as I said, and their style thinking is something called dialectical algorithmic thinking, which Gulenko, who's an INTP, by the way, named, and that's a very like TI phrase, dialectical algorithmic. Anyway, the dialectical algorithmic people include the INTJ, ENFJ, ESTJ, and ISFJ. So they all have the same form of cognitive thinking style. And basically, ISFJ thinks a lot like INTJ. INTJ is the type we associate with brilliance. So, but INTJ, ENFJ, they're obviously brilliant to us because they make a big deal of it. So what's the difference? So I think, okay, first of all, I want to be able to explain the style thinking in very simple terms. So to be able to do that, I thought of chess playing. So these types are the types that look like they are playing chess throughout life, okay? And INTJs do this in a very obvious way. And the reason why they do it in a very obvious way is that they're basically very blunt about what they're doing. So they say they want to do something, they want to accomplish a goal. Maybe they want to help somebody accomplish a goal. They use very strategic means to be able to get that person to land where they need to go. And the strategy is basically why I think of it like a chess game is that the chess game is a very logical game, it's a very strategic game. In the game, your strategy has to keep shifting. You can't stick to the same strategy because your opponent is going to be doing something different. So the strategy keeps switching. You can't be tied to the end goal. The end goal is not necessarily to take the king. The end goal could be to stalemate, for example. So you have to keep switching, shifting your goal, and but there's a lot of intricate logical moves that you have to make throughout the game. So that is dialectical algorithmic thinking. INTJs do this. They're kind of called the chess masters, right? And we all know that because basically INTJs blatantly tell people, hey, I'm playing YOLO like a chess game. And they basically I noticed this with INTJs where they just like decide to announce that, yes, I'm playing everyone like a chess game. So the difference between ISFJ and INTJ and why ISFJ has some sort of advantage is that they don't actually announce this to other people. So they keep their motives more hidden. So it's up to me to announce this for you, what they're doing. So ISFJs uses algorithmic blah 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 thinking, chess game strategy, but in the complex social sphere. Social sphere is actually very complex. They do it through casual diplomacy. So kind of think about it this way. There's these movies, which I can't remember or think about right now, where a lower level person actually has more influence than the person in charge, say the receptionist or the barista. And because they're engaging with a lot of people and they're using their influence in a casual way, just by talking with them in order to help out the person in charge or whatever they're doing. So this is kind of the idea. ISFJ, that's kind of the role ISFJs kind of play. On the surface, a very non-threatening character, because someone treats their passions like a hobby. It's like that's not very threatening. People are threatened if you take your passions very seriously, and then the people who also share the same passion are threatened by them because you're putting them into a competitive mindset. So on the surface, very non-threatening. So because they're non-threatening, they're able to exercise their influence because nobody wants to fight against them. So they do this, and they pay attention to people. They read them very well. They know how to say the right thing. They know how to keep the atmosphere light and pleasant, and they help people when they can. And the good thing about helping, I really want to burp, by the way. But I don't want. I'm going to feel too embarrassed to do that, so I'm just going to have this unpleasant pressure that's building up in me. So anyway, there is, yeah. So they help people, and the great thing about helping people is that they help people. You give and you get, right? And they prevent escalation. So the thing is, the problem with people who are very alpha is that they escalate the situation, and thus people push back, and thus they may not attain the high-level position that they want. On the contrast, I actually see ISFJs capable of attaining high levels of position like director or famous creative artist or something like that, the person who gets the girl, person who gets the guy, and they do this all through basically submissive behaviors. So submissive and seeming non-threatening. And this is a way of exercising influence that actually, because and I'm not saying that this is necessarily, this is bad. This is actually, they may be doing this for a very good cause, and they are really helping people out. But as a result of their dedication to doing that, taking care of details for other people, helping them out, and not being like dominantly aggressive, they're able to they're able to accomplish what they want to accomplish. So the other thing I want to talk about, I think I talked a lot about this topic already, so I'm going to one thing I want to notice that even if they're a director, like whatever high position, I notice that even when they occupy these positions, they continue to have basically the way they engage with other people is through submissive behaviors or through things that you don't associate with alpha behaviors, but people recognize them as the alpha. But if you really see their behavior and how they still exercise their influence at a top level, they're still engaging in those behaviors. So ISFJ is at heart an expert intuiting type. So I mentioned in the video I made 2.5 billion years ago. That Isfj, that your inferior function is kind of where your heart truly lies. So Isfjs, I kind of noticed, they ultimately want to live in a world of irreverence. So they want to, it's like kind of, they want to live in that kind of jokey, lighthearted world, playful any world where there's nothing of, that's not very serious, not very like, there's not this deep, serious, heartfelt stuff that is in there. And maybe it's because they don't value introverted feeling, even though they actually express a lot of introverted feeling. So it's kind of like an anti-Fi, pro-any world. So anyway, I want to move on. So I was, last video, I was kind of mid-sentence about ESFJs. I was like, da-da-da-da-da-da, and got cut off. And okay, so I want to be able to continue that. First, I want to describe ESFJ a bit. So ESFJs are, some people don't know if they're ESFJs or ISFJs. So ESFJs, the main difference is that ESFJs are definitely dominant. So they're kind of threatening people to challenge. So ESFJ is kind of like an alpha type. But as I said, alpha behavior, as I mentioned before, alpha behavior could kind of bite you back. So that can also work against them too. And I was saying something about ESFJs, basically, playing to be dumb, pretending to be dumb. And one thing is that they'll tell like the same joke over and over again, in which they kind of pretend not to know something. So everyone laughs at them and they keep hitting on that over and over again. And it could lead people on for years. And people would actually think that they're not like smart. But actually, if you really, I just like really study their face and they're actually thinking behind it. Because their goal is to create a lighthearted atmosphere. So this is basically the SFJ ethos. It's basically to, they have influence, okay? As much influence as any other type. But it's not as obvious as like an NFJ. NFJ is like, I am an NF. I'm trying to influence the world to be a better place. But SFJs, they may even have the same goals to make the world a better place, but it's kind of done in a way where it's SIFE. So by making people feel comfortable and the environment feel welcoming, people just happen to gravitate towards whatever cause they're doing without knowing that they're like necessarily even working towards that cause or like laboring for that cause. They just do it by making the environment feel good. So, and that's how they influence people, and they do it very powerfully. So ESFJ is at heart a TI type, introverted thinking type. So as I said about like them playing dumb, they're trying to create that energetic, positive atmosphere. But in order to do so, they actually are inside. They're actually smooth operators. So ENFJs, you see the same thing. It's like, yes, they're very genuinely emotional and expressive, but behind that is that they calculate all that FE maneuvers through a TI, and they do it extremely smooth, like smoother than any other type. Like they are, ENFJs, ESFJs are the ultimate smooth operators of the MBTI types. So another way to identify ESFJ, 90% of the sentences that come out of their mouth are questions. And yes, that is an exaggeration, but they say a lot of questions. How did they do that? How did they make that? What is this? What is that? What's the meaning of this? So this is introvert thinking, seeking behavior. And then I notice when they start asking a bunch of these questions and you have an INTP at the other side of the table, INTP starts answering all their questions. ESFJ asks more questions, INTP answers those questions. So this is kind of a duality that goes on. I would really want to make a video about duality, by the way. I think it's fascinating. I don't necessarily think it necessarily works. There's pros and cons to it, but that's for later. Anyway, FB. Oh, INTPs seek extrovert feeling. So actually, if you write a poem for someone or heartfelt appreciation, surprisingly, the person who's going to be most moved to tears at the deepest level is the INTP. It's not an extrovert feeling dominant type, but an INTP. Of course, an ENFJ, ESFJ will be moved, but really I just seen this to the core, INTPs. I want to mention about there's this ENFJ artist that I know, and she has two sons. One son's an INFP, one son is an INTP, and she doesn't know about MBTI types, but she did a portrait of her two sons, and you could actually see their inferior function in the portrait because she wanted to pick out the other side of her sons and put it on the painting. And the interesting thing is that you could see the FE in the INTP, and actually it's something's noticeable in INTP. It's like it appears as a certain softness in the face, but kind of like emotional in it too, like a soft emotional characteristic. And the reason why the ENFJ is able to do that too is actually they're also one of the dialectical algorithmic thinkers I was talking about earlier, and this is the kind of ability to kind of synthesize opposites. So she's able to see the opposite side of her son very well into one visual image. So the type of thinking I was talking about is also very visual as well. Anyway, last but not least, ENTP. I think I talked a lot about ENTP last time, so I'm not going to say a million things. But one thing about I want to say is that ENTPs, they have role extrovert sensing. So they don't value extrovert sensing, they value extrovert intuition, introvert sensing, but they have role extrovert sensing. What that means is that the extrovert sensing comes out very strong, but it's kind of weak. But I have to say the role function is kind of has a strength and way in that it could be kind of speedy. It works kind of fast at first, but it's very one-dimensional and simplistic. So how this is expressed is that ENTP is, a lot of them like to fidget with things. So they take a straw and they fidget it in their hand, or they take some cards. There's this girl who's an INTP, and she has this stack of cards that she keeps dropping them on the floor and picking them back up and dropping them again while she's talking. So it's SC because it's kind of impulsive energy, but it's kind of clumsy. And the last thing I want to say is that they value introvert sensing. So at the deepest level, they want everyone to be comfortable, which is something I've observed, but I feel like I need more data points in order to make that claim solid. One thing is that I think some people with inferior SI have told me that ultimately there's a recorder in the back of their brain that's recording everything. So I think that has something to do with it too, but that's also something I'm not really sure of. So anyway, I'm done with this topic.